was driving my car down that dark road. Suddenly, the car broke down. I tried to start it over and over. But it was no use. Fear began to creep into the depths of my soul. Then, I heard a sound. Loud knocks coming from the trunk. I hesitated for a moment. Then, cautiously opened it. She was there. But how? How did she come back? My name is Jack, and I am now 36 years old. This is my story. It was a dark night, and the road was eerily quiet. I was driving fast to visit my friend Thomas. After he called me unexpectedly to invite me for dinner, I felt a tinge of unease, but I tried to shake it off. Suddenly, a girl appeared out of nowhere in front of my car. She was incredibly beautiful, with long black hair and pale skin. I couldn't stop in time. I hit her hard. Time froze suddenly, as if everything around me had stopped moving. I felt a violent jolt followed by the sound of the collision, a sound so loud it nearly tore through my ears. My heart was pounding wildly, as if my chest could no longer contain it. My hands were shaking uncontrollably on the steering wheel, and I felt as though I was suffocating. I tried to breathe, but the air seemed to refuse to reach my lungs. I looked out the car window, and the world seemed to shrink around me. It felt as though I was trapped in a vortex of panic. When I saw the girl's motionless body lying on the ground, a wave of mixed emotions swept over me: fear, shock, and regret. Only one thought invaded my mind. What have I done? I felt my body go numb. My temperature spiked, yet I was cold as ice inside. Tears filled my eyes involuntarily. In that moment, my mind was completely disoriented. Part of me wanted to run and scream for help, while another part wanted to vanish entirely from this nightmare. I kept hearing a voice in my head screaming, "No! This didn't happen. This has to be a nightmare." But everything I saw before me confirmed that this reality was far more terrifying than any nightmare. I didn't know what to do. The fear of the consequences paralyzed my thoughts. Acting out of sheer panic, I picked up her body and placed it in the trunk of my car. I drove her body to an abandoned forest, where I buried her in the pitch-black darkness. When I returned to the car, my hands were trembling. My face was pale. At first, I believed I had done the right thing. In that moment when I accidentally hit the girl, fear had overtaken me. I wasn't thinking about the consequences. My only thought was how to get rid of the body. Was it a crime? Yes, perhaps, but for me at that moment it was just an unfortunate accident. I had no idea that moment would change my life forever. I continued driving to Thomas's house, trying to act as if nothing had happened. But he noticed my unease. He asked me multiple times if I was okay, but I avoided him. Thomas kept talking to me, but I couldn't hear his words. My mind was consumed by the girl I had hit. Her image replayed before my eyes, her long black hair haunting me like a nightmare. Every time I tried to focus on Thomas's conversation, her scream echoed in my ears. I tried desperately to ignore these thoughts, but I couldn't. I avoided looking at Thomas, but he stared at me with a puzzled expression, perhaps sensing something strange in my behavior. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked me again. I just nodded and said, "Yes, I'm fine. Don't worry." But deep inside, I knew I wasn't fine. That girl was haunting me every moment. A whole week passed. I tried to act as if everything was normal, but the nightmares were relentless. I kept seeing her face in my dreams, her deep eyes piercing through me as if asking, "Why?" I was driving on the same road. Suddenly, the car broke down in the exact same spot where I had hit her. I tried starting it several times, but it was no use. As if the car had gone mad, I felt a wave of intense fear. The sound coming from the trunk made my heart nearly stop. There were loud, violent knocks, as if something or someone was trying to escape. I kept asking myself, is this just my imagination? Or is she really there? Has she returned? After 5 terrifying minutes, the car suddenly started working again. I sped off, trying to escape this nightmare. But the image wouldn't leave my mind. Every night, the nightmares grew worse. A week after the accident, I decided to visit Thomas again. I needed to talk to someone who might help me rid myself of these nightmares that were consuming me every night. I arrived at his house late at night and knocked on the door. Thomas opened the door quickly, as if he had been expecting me. We sat in the living room, and I began to tell him what had happened. I didn't expect him to believe me, but his reaction was strange. He didn't seem shocked or afraid. Instead, he looked at me seriously and said, "Do you know that this girl might be an angry spirit? In some legends, it's said that spirits who were unjustly killed remain trapped between the world of the living and the dead." Then he added, "There's only one way to end this nightmare. You have to go back to the forest and offer her a sincere apology. If her spirit is angry, perhaps this will calm her." I felt hesitant and scared, but deep down, I knew this might be the only solution. I promised him I'd think about it and left his house, filled with a mix of fear and hope. A few days after my last visit to Thomas, I found myself driving on the same road once again, as if fate wanted me to confront what I had been running from. The car stopped again. The trunk began shaking violently, as if she was trying to exact her revenge. Her spirit seemed truly trapped. I decided to end this nightmare. I stepped out of the car, gathered all my courage, and opened the trunk. And there, I saw the scene that would haunt me forever. She was there, the same girl, lying in the trunk. But this time, there was no blood. She looked as if she had never been harmed. Her eyes were wide open, staring at me with that strange look. Suddenly, she sat up slowly and smiled, a cold, chilling smile that froze my blood. Before I could move or think, I heard her voice, soft but clear. "You thought you got rid of me, didn't you?" I slammed the trunk shut quickly, as if trying to bury this nightmare behind me, and it felt like the entire forest shook. I screamed out loud. Not out of bravery, but because fear had seeped into my soul. I rushed to the driver's seat, locked the doors, and pressed the start button as fast as I could. Suddenly, the car started working. I felt a moment of relief, but it didn't last long. I drove as fast as I could, as though I was fleeing from a ghost chasing me. And as I drove down the deserted mountain road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was there, sitting in the back seat, cold and calm as ever. She smiled that icy smile and said in a voice that nearly stopped my heart, "You're back, Jack. Did you miss me?" My hands shook on the steering wheel, her voice echoing in my head. I lost control of the car and crashed into the side of the mountain. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. My body felt heavy, but I couldn't move it. I tried to get up, but my legs felt non-existent. I began to scream, and doctors rushed toward me. They told me I had been in a coma for 3 months and had lost the ability to walk due to a spinal injury. I was now paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I couldn't escape her image. I knew what happened to me was her revenge. What I did to her, burying her body in the forest, wasn't just a wrong act. It was something beyond explanation or escape. I was living in an unending nightmare. I saw her everywhere. I felt her presence in the room with me. And every time I closed my eyes, I heard her whispers, "This is your punishment for leaving me in the dark forest." My life had become a never-ending hell. This was Jack's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. Have a horror story of your own? Drop it in the comments below. Your story might just be the next one we share.